French Connections, our weekly look at the intricacies of life here in France with Florence Villeneuve.
Hi, Jeannie.
Hi, Flo. This week, we're going to focus on a brand new program here in France. It's a national civic service for 15 and 16-year-olds. It comes nearly 2 decades after France phased out mandatory military service for young men.
It sure does, and it's called the Service National Universel, so it's called the SNU. It's our acronym du jour, not necessarily the sexiest name, but that's what it's called, and it's the pet project of Emmanuel Macron, so the president, who's actually the first president not to have been called up for military service because he was too young. Now, France already requires citizens to participate in something called the Defense and Citizenship Day. Essentially, it's a course where when you take when you turn 18 and you're presented with the country's military, you take a language test, etc. But Macron wanted to take it a step further, and when he was running for president, he actually promised to give a direct experience of military life.
But interestingly, this is not exactly military life. The project's been tweaked a bit. It's a compulsory civic service, but there are some similarities.
That's right. You won't get your head shaved and you won't learn how to use a weapon, but there certainly are a lot of codes from the army. For instance, there's a uniform. It's not a khaki uniform. It's this blue uniform that some might say looks a little bit like a security guard. There's a lot of walking information, discipline. Every day starts with a raising of the flag, and you sing La Marseillaise, so the national anthem. Now, in a country that's battling divisions between the left and the right, rich and poor, religious people and non-religious people, and a country that's still reeling from the 2015 terrorist attacks, the idea of this program is to promote national cohesion and patriotism. Just listen to the junior minister who's driving the program.
There are young people today who never leave the neighborhood they were born in. We need to train people to react in case of a natural disaster or terrorist attack. And also, service. France has a hard time showing young people how useful they are to society.
Now, the idea is to also mix up the population and get people out of their comfort zone, just like the military service used to do.
And there are 2 parts to this new civic service. First of all, teenagers will leave home, leave their region for a new region for a fortnight of training. And then later, there's a second part, a 2-week program, essentially where you volunteer with a charity or a local government. Now, 2,000 volunteers took part in the pilot of this program, and they all had different hopes and desires for a fulfilling experience. Take a listen.
I hope it will be a bit like the army, but I also want to learn new things about French values and stuff like that.
Adventure and discovery. We need discipline. We act up too much.
You learn solidarity and you get to play sports with other people.
It's a good way to build relationships and learn about French values.
So what's it actually like? What do these teenagers learn during these first 2 weeks away from home?
Well, their schedule is really packed. They learn first aid, self-defense, how to read a map, how to recognize fake news, which I find really interesting. They also learn all sorts of different emergency responses for different scenarios. They get a health checkup. They get tested on their level of French. And this being France, they also debate and discuss all sorts of different hot-button issues. For instance, the environment, equality between men and women, sexual orientation, disabilities, and of course, state secularism, laïcité. All this while waking up at the crack of dawn and having limited access to their cell phones.
It was early, so early. I wasn't ready.
I'm thrilled. There were things that I had never done, like the raising of the flag. But waking up at 6:30 is hard.
I like the jacket and the shoes.
Close it. Jackets must be closed.
We only get to use our phone 1 hour at night. But that's good because we'll socialize and talk to each other instead of being on our phones. It's better.
I didn't expect it to be like this. We're sleeping on a tiny mattress. But it's normal. It's not summer camp.
Now, the idea to create some sort of civic service has actually been around ever since the military service was abolished.
And the compulsory, almost year-long military service for men was abolished in 1997 by the former president Jacques Chirac, who wanted to make the army professional. That being said, some people, including some politicians, feel really nostalgic about that character-building experience. It was a rite of passage into adulthood, even though some admit that it was grueling and kind of mind-numbing.
We woke up early, ate early, we did everything early.
The saying goes, and it's true, in the army you don't do anything, but you wake up early to do it.
I didn't feel like I learned that much. I wasted a lot of time. I couldn't wait for it to be over.
And this new civic program does have its critics. Some people are pointing to its high cost down the line when it becomes mandatory for all teenagers.
And the SNU will become obligatory by 2026. It'll concern some 800,000 teenagers and could cost about 1.6 billion euros. So opponents to the program say that money could just be better spent elsewhere, like in education. And other critics actually question whether such a short program will actually help build national cohesion. Is it actually just nationalism that's just kind of disguised in this program, or is it really the creation of a new rite of passage? Opinions are divided.
All right, we'll see how it all pans out. Thank you for that, Florence Villeminot. Don't forget, if you have any of your own questions about France or the French for Flo, you can always send her a tweet at Flo Villeminot.